My name is Jade, and if I ever had a shred of doubt about where I stood in my family, it vanished the day I stumbled upon the will. No heart-to-heart conversation, no emotional sit-down where my parents broke the news to me. No, I found out purely by accident, by nothing more than sheer, dumb luck. It happened a few months ago at my parents' house, the same house I had been helping them pay for over the past 5 years. Mortgage? I covered it. Groceries? I made sure they never ran out. Repairs? That was on me too. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Erica, did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean it in the most literal sense. No job, no responsibilities, just a lifetime supply of entitlement. She lounged around like a queen, waiting for life to serve her fortune on a silver platter. And apparently, my parents were more than happy to be her loyal subjects. That day, I was helping my dad Robert sort through some paperwork. He had always been hopeless when it came to anything remotely administrative, and as usual, I was the one picking up the slack. He handed me a pile of legal and financial documents, asking me to scan them. I didn't think much of it at first, until my eyes landed on a folder labeled estate plan and last will and testament. Now, let me be clear, I'm not someone who snoops, but when you've spent years making sure your parents keep a roof over their heads, it's not unreasonable to wonder how things are set up for the future. So, against my better judgment, I opened it, and that's when I saw it. Everything, and I mean every last thing, was being left to Erica. The house, the savings, the assets. Not a single mention of me. Well, aside from a generic, meaningless line about them loving both of their daughters equally. Yeah, sure, because love is totally measured by who gets the entire inheritance and who gets a footnote. I sat there, gripping the pages, my hands trembling. Was this a joke? I had been the one keeping this family afloat, sacrificing my time, my money, my energy, only to be completely erased from their future. Meanwhile, Erica, the princess of procrastination, the duchess of doing nothing, had somehow secured everything without lifting a single damn finger. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, anger, betrayal, disbelief, all hitting me at once. How long had they planned this? Had they always intended for me to be their safety net with nothing in return? Before I could even process it all, my dad walked back into the room. Jade, what's taking so long? I didn't bother hiding the will. I wanted answers. I lifted the document, locking eyes with him. So, this is how it is? My voice was eerily calm, but inside I was shaking. Everything to Erica? After everything I've done for you? Robert's face paled. For a brief second, he actually looked guilty before sighing like I was some child throwing a tantrum. Jade, it's not what you think. I let out a dry laugh. Really? Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I didn't give him time to come up with another weak excuse. I called out for my mom, Linda, because I wanted to hear it from both of them. When she walked in and saw the will in my hands, her expression shifted. She looked guilty, but the words that left her mouth only poured gasoline on the fire burning inside me. Jade, honey, she said softly, like she was doing me a favor. You don't need the inheritance. You have a good job. You're independent. Erica, she struggles. We just want to make sure she's taken care of. And that was it. The moment something inside me snapped. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they had no shame in admitting it. They had spent years enabling Erica's laziness, rewarding her refusal to take responsibility for her own life while I was treated like an afterthought. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and placed the will down on the table. Got it, I said, my voice void of emotion. Glad to know where we stand. And then, without another word, I walked out. I didn't look back. I walked out of that house and never looked back. Not that night. Not the next day. Not for weeks. I didn't call. I didn't text. I let them figure things out on their own for once. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. If something broke, they could fix it. If the fridge was empty, they could go shopping. If the mortgage payment showed up, well, that was Erica's problem now, wasn't it? At first, I think my parents assumed I was just being dramatic, that I was throwing a little fit, and that any day now, I'd come crawling back like I always had. But the days passed, then a week, then 2, and I still hadn't reached out. That's when the silence started to shift. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad, I didn't even have to open the message to know exactly what it would say. Robert, the property taxes are due. No hey, how are you? No sorry for what happened. Not even a pathetic attempt at pretending they appreciated everything I'd done. Just a cold, transactional message, like I was still their personal ATM. I stared at my phone for a second, almost impressed at how predictable they were. They really thought they could just summon me like nothing had happened, that I'd keep paying for their lives, even after they made it crystal clear I wasn't worth a damn thing to them. I typed back, I'm sure Erica will handle it, since the house is hers and all. I barely had time to set my phone down before it buzzed again. Linda, Jade, please don't be like this. We need to talk. Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that their bills were piling up. Now that reality was finally slapping them in the face. I let the message sit there for an hour before responding. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it. I figured that would be the end of it, that they'd get the hint. But of course, I had underestimated their audacity, because later that night, guess who decided to join in? Erica. The second I saw her name pop up, I knew this was about to be some next level entitlement. Erica, dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do. I laughed out loud. Not a big deal? Oh, now it was not a big deal. Now that she was the one inheriting everything, suddenly money didn't matter. I typed back, no, I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all, she replied instantly. Erica, oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, Jade. It's just money. Just money. Funny. Because when it was my money, when I was the one keeping them afloat, it wasn't just money. It was expected. Then you won't mind using some of that inheritance to pay for the mortgage, right? And just like that, silence. A few minutes later, another text popped up. Linda, Jade, we're family. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us? I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Abandoning them? I had spent years making sure they never had to worry about a single damn thing. All while they coddled Erica, handed her everything, and treated me like an afterthought. And now that they finally had to deal with the consequences of their own choices, I was the bad guy? Not this time. You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Erica can take care of you. I could imagine my mom's gasp. She always did have a flair for the dramatic. Another text came in, this time from Dad. Robert, we're not asking for much. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months. Until we figure things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish. I actually sat back and laughed. I had spent years paying their bills. I had given up my own financial security for them. I had been their safety net when they had no one else. And I was the selfish one? I took a deep breath, steadying my hands, and typed back one final message. No, I'm done. Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now, they were going to live with it. I woke up the next morning feeling lighter. For the first time in years, there were no messages demanding money, no guilt trips, no weight of responsibility pressing down on my chest. I stretched, grabbed my phone, and a bank transfer request from Linda. I frowned and opened it. $3,500. I actually laughed. They weren't even asking anymore, they were just demanding it. No message, no explanation, just a blatant, shameless assumption that I'd cave like I always had. I hit decline without a second thought. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring, then another text. Linda, Jade, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? Oh, so now she wanted to talk. I took my time replying. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Erica. Another call. Declined. Then another text, this one dripping in pure desperation. Linda, we're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, now it was an emergency. Now that the consequences were real, they suddenly needed me. They had treated me like a walking wallet for years. But the second I stopped paying, the house was at risk. I typed back, feeling absolutely no guilt. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, Robert joined in. Robert, you're really going to let your parents become homeless? I nearly choked on my coffee. Homeless? They weren't broke. They had money. They just didn't want to touch it. They were so used to me handling everything that they couldn't stomach the idea of dipping into their own savings. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, another text popped up. Erica, dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This girl had the audacity of a queen sitting on a throne built by other people's effort. You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? Her response was instant. Erica, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, so now it was about affordability? She had no problem with me draining my savings for them. But the second she had to step up, suddenly it was too much. Me, guess you better figure it out then. You're the one they chose. Silence. I went to bed that night feeling at peace, like I had finally broken free from something toxic. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when my phone rang. This time, it wasn't my parents. It was my apartment's front desk. Hey, Jade, your parents are here. I nearly dropped my phone. What? They're saying it's an emergency, that you won't answer their calls. My stomach clenched. They actually showed up because I stopped paying their bills, because I refused to be manipulated. They thought they could just corner me in my own home. I took a deep breath, pressing my fingers against my temple. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. An awkward pause. They're being kind of pushy. I don't care. Tell them to leave. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. Linda, we're downstairs. Open the door. No, please. No explanation. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another message. Linda, Jade, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. Fine. If they wanted to ambush me, I'd show them exactly why that was a mistake. I grabbed my keys, stormed downstairs, and yanked the door open. And there they were, Linda, Robert, Erica, standing together like they were about to stage some kind of family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed. Her classic disappointed mother look locked and loaded. Dad stood stiff, hands shoved in his pockets, frustration and entitlement written all over his face. And Erica? She looked bored, like this was just a mild inconvenience for her. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. No. Linda blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, I said, voice calm but firm. You don't get to show up at my apartment and demand money. That's insane, Robert scoffed. Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. A petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be in your will? Linda gasped like I had slapped her. Jade, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Erica. Just say it. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Erica, who had been suspiciously quiet this entire time, finally spoke. Look, I didn't ask for anything. I turned to her, narrowing my eyes. No, you just sat back and took everything that was handed to you. She shifted uncomfortably. I didn't do anything wrong. Exactly. You've never done anything. And yet, somehow, you still ended up with everything. Her face turned red. What do you want me to say, Jade? I took a step closer. I want you to get a damn job. You're 28 years old. You want to inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the favorite? Start paying their bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Her mouth opened, then closed. Nothing, because she had nothing. Linda took a deep breath, clearly recalibrating her guilt trip strategy. Jade, she's your sister. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported her longer than you ever have. Robert's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed, genuine and sharp. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Erica deserved everything, and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it. Not happening. Linda's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted. Robert stepped forward, trying to loom over me. Jade, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I already did, for years, and you repaid me by cutting me out. Silence, suffocating, undeniable. I turned to Erica, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? She swallowed hard. I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited. She had no response, because there was nothing left to say. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Linda was still clutching her chest like she had been personally wounded. Robert looked ready to explode. And Erica wouldn't even look at me. Good. Let them sit in it. Let them feel the weight of their own choices. The weight of years of entitlement and favoritism crashing down on them. And yet, Linda still had one more guilt trip left in her. She sighed, deep and dramatic, as if she were the victim here. Jade, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I tilted my head, arms still crossed. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze, No words, no comeback, nothing, because there was no justification for what they had done. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. We're done here. I turned on my heel and walked back toward my apartment door. 3 steps, 2, 1, then, wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us? Robert's voice rang out behind me, sharp and biting. I stopped, smirked, and without turning around, I replied, "No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it." I walked inside and shut the door. For the first time in forever, I felt free. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. So I blocked them. Linda, Robert, Erica, all gone. And for about a day, I thought that would be the end of it. I should have known better, because the next morning, when I went to check my phone, I had dozens of notifications. They had gone to Facebook. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course they did. When manipulation didn't work, they ran to social media for sympathy. I clicked on Mom's profile. The first post read, "It breaks my heart when the child you raised turns their back on you. Family means everything, but I guess some people just don't understand that." Oh, she was good. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. Her friends were already eating it up. "Oh no, Linda, what happened? That's terrible. Some kids are just so ungrateful these days. Stay strong, sweetie. God sees everything." I clicked on Robert's page next. "So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid?" Oh, really? They gave me everything? I was the one who paid their mortgage. I was the one who kept food in their fridge. I was the one who made sure they never struggled. And now, I was the villain? I clenched my jaw and kept scrolling, and then I saw Erica's post. Some people think family is just about money. They don't understand that real family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. I stared at the screen in disbelief. She would do anything for them? She had done nothing for them, ever. And yet, here she was, painting herself as the devoted daughter, the one who actually cared, while I was framed as the selfish one. It wasn't just a few posts, either. They were everywhere. Photos of my parents looking sad with captions like, "We just wanted the best for our family." Long rants about how kids these days have no respect for their elders. People the first barely knew family friends. Distant relatives, random acquaintances were commenting things like, "Wow, I can't believe Jade would do this. That's just wrong. Parents should always come first. Maybe she's just going through something. She'll come around." I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a deep breath, set my phone down, and forced myself to think. This was calculated. They knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't just looking for sympathy. They were trying to pressure me into breaking. They wanted me to be overwhelmed by guilt, by public shame, by the fear of looking like the bad guy. They thought that if enough people saw their posts, if enough people judged me, I'd feel forced to give in. They thought they could control me the way they always had. I picked up my phone again, opened Facebook, and started typing. I've been quiet for the past few days, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My family's been posting things about me that simply aren't true. They've painted me as selfish, as someone who abandoned them, but they're leaving out the full story. So here it is. For years, I supported my parents. I paid for their bills, their groceries, their mortgage. I helped them financially in every way I could, while my sister, Erica, did nothing. But despite all of that, when I found their will, I learned that they had left everything to her. Every asset, every dollar, the house, everything. They made it clear that I was only useful when they needed money. They didn't value me as a daughter, only as a provider. So I made a choice. I walked away, and now, because they can no longer use me, they've turned to social media to paint themselves as the victims. I won't play their game. I won't be manipulated, and I refuse to apologize for standing up for myself. Family should be a two-way street. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I won't give any more. I hit post, and just like that, I took back control of the narrative. Almost immediately, the messages started coming in. Cousins, family friends, even some of my parents' own acquaintances. "Jade, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Wow, that's messed up. You did the right thing. They really left everything to Erica and still expected you to pay for them? That's insane." Not everyone was on my side, of course. Some of my parents' closest friends were still sending passive-aggressive comments about respecting your elders and not airing family business online. But the damage was done. The truth was out there. They could keep spinning their lies. They could keep posting vague, manipulative messages. But now, people knew the full story. And for once, I wasn't the one drowning in guilt. They were. I expected the fallout. The second I hit post, I knew my parents wouldn't take it lying down. I could practically hear Linda gasping in outrage, Robert pacing in frustration, and Erica furiously typing on her phone, trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. And sure enough, within minutes, the backlash hit. First, a private message from Erica. Erica, wow, you really had to air all our family business online like that? You're a traitor. A traitor, I laughed. This coming from the person who had benefited the most from my sacrifices, who had done nothing for our parents yet still walked away with everything. I typed back, me, a traitor to what? Your free ride? No response. Then, my phone started ringing. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a text popped up. Robert, you've ruined everything, Jade. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your family. Ah, there it was. The last-ditch effort, the threat that one day I'd wake up and realize I had made a horrible mistake. Except, I didn't feel regret. Not even a little. Because for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't carrying their burden anymore. I wasn't the one being manipulated, used, guilt-tripped into giving up parts of myself for people who never gave anything back. So I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked them. Not just on my phone, but on everything: Facebook, Instagram, email, every possible way they could reach me. And just like that, they were gone. The next few weeks were strange. I had spent so many years revolving my life around them that suddenly having peace felt unnatural. I wasn't constantly checking my bank account, worrying if there would be another surprise expense I had to cover. I wasn't dreading the next phone call, knowing it would come with a demand attached. I wasn't waking up to a flood of guilt-tripping messages. For the first time, my life was actually my own. And it was better. I started going out more, spending time with friends, actually enjoying my own money instead of hoarding it for the next emergency. My parents threw at me. I picked up new hobbies, ones I had never had time for before because I had always been too busy dealing with their problems. I even started traveling, something I had always dreamed of, but could never justify when I was funneling so much of my income into my parents' household. And you know what? I didn't miss them. Not once. But just when I thought they had finally given up, they found a new way to get to me, through extended family. One night, my aunt, my mom's sister, called me out of the blue. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. Big mistake. Jade, sweetie, I just wanted to check in on you. I sighed. Here we go. I'm fine, Aunt Marie. You know, I saw what happened on Facebook. It's really such a shame. Family shouldn't be fighting like this. I closed my eyes, already feeling the headache forming. It's not a fight, I said. I just decided I wasn't going to be used anymore. Oh, honey, they don't see it that way. I bet they didn't. They're hurting, Jade. Your mom calls me in tears, saying she doesn't know what to do. Your dad says he just wants to talk. I almost laughed. Oh, so now they wanted to talk? Did they also tell you that they left me out of the will? That they expected me to keep paying their bills while giving everything to Erica? Silence. Exactly. I just think you should be the bigger person, Aunt Marie finally said, her voice soft. Apologize. Make amends. Life's too short for grudges. Grudges. That word made my blood boil. This isn't a grudge, I said, my voice calm but firm. This is me realizing I deserve better. Another long silence. I hope you don't regret this one day, she murmured. I exhaled slowly. I won't. And then I hung up. Months passed. I heard through the grapevine that my parents were struggling, really struggling. Turns out, when they couldn't guilt-trip me anymore, they had to start dipping into their own savings. And Erica? She wasn't as eager to take on responsibility when she was the one expected to cover the mortgage. I wasn't surprised. I never reached out, and they never tried to contact me again. The silence was the greatest gift they had ever given me. And as for me, I was thriving. I had my own life now. My own freedom, my own happiness, one that wasn't tied to their endless expectations. For the first time in my entire life, I wasn't someone's backup plan. I wasn't someone's safety net. I wasn't their walking ATM. I was just Jade, and that was more than enough. Story 2. I always knew my mother didn't really want me. It wasn't that she was cruel in an obvious way, no outright abuse, no locking me in a basement or forgetting to feed me. But she never looked at me the way moms on TV looked at their kids. She never tucked me in at night or asked how my day was. She just tolerated me. My dad left when I was 2. No big dramatic exit, he just disappeared, sending child support checks and nothing else. I have no memories of him, just the occasional reminder that he existed in the form of a name on a bank statement. My mother, Ellie, had me when she was young, and I always got the feeling that I was more of a consequence than a beloved child. She was the kind of woman who thrived in social circles, always out with friends, always laughing just a little too loudly, always more invested in her dating life than in me. For most of my childhood, I was raised by babysitters and nannies. I think if she could have justified it, she would have sent me to boarding school. But since we didn't have that kind of money, I was just expected to stay out of her way. Then she met Matt. Matt was different. I had seen a revolving door of boyfriends come and go, but none of them had ever been introduced to me with any seriousness. When she told me to be on my best behavior before meeting him, I knew something was different. Matt had a daughter too, Jessica. She was my age, which I thought might be nice at first. But I quickly learned that Jess was nothing like me. She was popular, confident, the kind of girl who knew how to command a room even as a teenager. The kind of girl my mom always seemed to like more than me. At first, things were fine. They visited often, then stayed over more. And before I knew it, they had practically moved in. I didn't mind too much. I wasn't close with my mother anyway, and if she was happy, maybe she'd leave me alone even more. But then she told me that Jess and I would be sharing a room. Now, I didn't have much, but my room was mine. It was the only space in that house where I could just exist, without feeling like I was in the way. And now, she wanted me to share it? With a girl I barely knew? I refused. That fight was the first time I saw my mother genuinely furious with me. She screamed, threatened to kick me out, called me ungrateful, but I knew she couldn't actually do it. I was only 14. The law was on my side. So, she relented, but not without making it clear that I had just made an enemy out of Jess. Jess got the basement instead. Not a bad space, honestly, but my mother made a whole show out of it, telling everyone, loudly, how Jess was forced to live down there because of me. I remember standing there, awkward, embarrassed, as she said it like some kind of public indictment, and Jess, of course, took it personally. That's when she decided to make my life hell. At school, she had a group of friends who followed her lead, and since she decided I was the enemy, they did too. It started small, snide comments, ignored invitations, casual insults thrown in the hallway. Then it got worse. She spread rumors, turned people against me, made me a joke in my own life. At home, it was the same. My mother, who had never been warm to me, now actively compared me to Jess. Jess was prettier, smarter, more charming. Jess had friends. Jess was everything I was not. Matt didn't care. He wasn't a bad guy, exactly, just indifferent. He let my mom handle me and focused on his daughter. By the time I was 18, I was a wreck, overweight, struggling with acne, barely passing my classes. I had no real friends except for Amy, my best friend since middle school. My home life was unbearable, but I had no other options. I kept my head down and counted the days until I could leave. Then came the night that changed everything. Jess had been hanging out with an older crowd, college guys, who drank, partied, did drugs. I knew, but I never said anything. It wasn't my business. One night, I got out of the shower to find my mother screaming at me. I barely had time to process what was happening before she stormed into my room, yanked up my mattress, and pulled out a plastic bag filled with weed and empty beer bottles. I knew instantly what had happened. Jess had planted them there, but my mother didn't care. She went on a rant, calling me a disappointment, a failure, a burden. I protested, of course. I told her it wasn't mine, that I didn't even drink. But Jess started crying, acting horrified, telling my mom how much she wished I could just be better. It was so perfectly executed that I almost admired her for it. My mother's voice turned cold. You need to leave. I froze. Where am I supposed to go? She shrugged. I don't care, but you're not staying here, I begged. I cried, but she was done with me. She even threatened to call the cops and report me for possession if I didn't go. So I packed a bag and walked out. Not a single person stopped me. I wandered for hours, eventually making my way to Amy's house. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't even hesitate. She pulled me inside, sat me down, and let me break down. When I finally told her everything, she was horrified. Her parents, bless them, were even more furious. They called my mom, tried to talk some sense into her. But Ellie dear, sweet, loving Ellie told them I was no longer her problem. That night, Amy's parents gave me a home. I didn't just crash there for a few days. They let me stay. They fed me, helped me apply to community college, and gave me the kind of support I had never had before. It was the first time in my life that I felt wanted. Over the years, I started to rebuild. I lost weight, worked on my skin, got better grades, and eventually saved up enough money to move out on my own. That's when I met Jeff. At first, I had no idea who he really was. He was just this sweet, funny guy I met on a dating app. We clicked instantly. I fell for him, hard, and after a few months, he told me about his family. His father owned a chain of restaurants, big ones. Jeff was set to inherit the company one day, but that didn't change anything for me. I loved him before I knew, and I loved him just as much after. We moved in together a year later, and a few months ago, he proposed. My life was finally coming together. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from Jess. I hadn't heard from her or my mother in years. And yet, there she was, apologizing, admitting to everything, saying she had framed me, saying she was sorry. And I knew immediately something was up. So, I did some digging. And what I found? Let's just say karma had finally arrived. When I saw Jess's name pop up in my inbox, I almost laughed. I mean, really? After all these years? She expected me to believe she was suddenly overcome with guilt and just had to confess? Yeah. Right. Still, curiosity got the best of me. I opened the email. She wrote this long, dramatic message about how she was so sorry for everything she did to me. She admitted to setting me up, planting the drugs and alcohol in my room, and making sure I got kicked out. She actually said it no excuses, no trying to spin it, just a straight-up confession. And yet, it didn't feel right. People like Jess don't just apologize out of nowhere, not unless there's something in it for them. So, I decided to dig a little. It didn't take much effort, just a quick, fake social media profile and a bit of snooping. I started with her Facebook, which was private, but her husband's wide open. And that's when I saw it. Her husband, Nathan, owned a business, a very specific business, one that supplied takeout containers and packaging materials for restaurants, including my fiance's family's restaurants. I swear, I had to read it twice to believe it. The timing suddenly made sense. I had just gotten engaged. I had posted about it, and since we went to the same high school, someone must have told her. She found out that my fiance, Jeff, was set to inherit his dad's restaurant empire. And oh, what a coincidence her husband's company relied on contracts with those very restaurants. This wasn't an apology. This was damage control. I took a deep breath, closed my laptop, and went to talk to Jeff. "Hey, babe," I said casually, sitting next to him on the couch. He looked up from his phone. "Yeah?" I grinned. "You're not gonna believe this." I told him everything. The email, the setup all those years ago, the sudden apology, and most importantly, the business connection. Jeff just blinked. "Wait, so her husband runs the company that supplies us?" "Yep." "And she suddenly decided to reach out after we got engaged?" "Uh-huh." He let out a low whistle. Wow. What a coincidence. We both knew it wasn't a coincidence. Now, Jeff isn't a petty guy. He's laid back, easygoing, one of the reasons I love him, but he's also fiercely loyal. And when I told him how my past had played out, how I had been kicked out over something I didn't do, how my mother had thrown me away like garbage, while Jess got to live her perfect little life, yeah, he wasn't having that. The thing was, Jeff and his dad had already been talking about switching suppliers. Jess's husband's company had been slacking for months, prices going up, quality going down. They had been looking for a replacement, so this was just convenient timing. A few days later, Jeff's dad called a meeting with Nathan. It was all very professional, just a simple, "We're ending the contract" conversation. No mention of me, no drama. But somehow, Jess put two and two together, and then the meltdown began. First, she sent me another email. This one was very different from the first. Gone were the apologies. Now it was all accusations. "You did this on purpose. You just couldn't let go of the past, could you? You're ruining my family. You're so bitter and vindictive, it's pathetic. Blah, blah, blah." I didn't even respond. Then she took it public. She made this long, dramatic Facebook post about how certain people were trying to ruin her husband's business out of spite and pettiness. She tagged Jeff's family's restaurant page, ranting about how unprofessional they were for dropping their contract over personal drama. Big mistake. See, if she had just shut up, this whole thing would have blown over. But now she had accused a major restaurant chain of unethical business practices. publicly, on record. Jeff's dad was not amused. He immediately called the lawyers. A few days later, Jess and her husband were served with a defamation lawsuit. And that's when my mother decided to crawl out of the woodwork. Because of course, she did. She called me, probably for the first time in 8 years. I didn't pick up, so she left a voicemail. I debated deleting it without listening, but in the end, curiosity won. I hit play. You need to fix this. No hello, no asking how I was, just straight to demands. Jessica is devastated. Her husband is struggling. Do you even understand what you've done? Oh, I understood perfectly. She went on and on about how family is family and how I needed to let the past go and help Jess make things right. I actually laughed out loud. 8 years. 8 years of nothing. Not a call, not a text. Not a single sign that she gave a damn whether I lived or died. And now, suddenly, I was family again? Yeah, no, I didn't call her back. Instead, I blocked her number. Then I sat back, sipped my coffee, and watched the chaos unfold. Jess and her husband tried to fight the lawsuit, but they didn't stand a chance. Jeff's dad's lawyers were sharks. They tore them apart. In the end, they had to issue a public apology, take down the Facebook post, and pay damages. It was over, and me, I was finally, truly free. You ever have one of those moments where you just sit back, take a deep breath, and think, damn, life really came full circle? That was me. Jess and her husband got wrecked in court. Turns out, publicly trashing a well-known restaurant chain and making false accusations isn't the smartest business move. Who knew? The lawsuit dragged on for a bit, but in the end, they had to pay up and issue a formal apology. Not just some half-assed, oops, or bad statement either. No. Jeff's dad's lawyers made sure it was a full-blown, we were wrong, we regret our actions, and we take full responsibility kind of deal. Honestly, it was satisfying, but the best part, I didn't even have to do anything. I just sat back and watched karma do its thing. The final desperation move. You'd think that after getting legally humiliated, Jess would have learned her lesson and crawled back into whatever hole she came from. Nope. Instead, she tried one last trick. A few days after the settlement, I got a text from a random number. At first, I wasn't going to check it, but curiosity got the best of me. It was my mother, or, as I like to call her, Ellie, the woman who only remembers I exist when she needs something. We need to talk. I literally laughed, like out loud. 8 years. 8 whole years. And now, suddenly we need to talk? Nah, I ignored it. A few hours later, another text came in. Jessica is really struggling. You don't understand how hard this has been for her. Please, just talk to her. Oh, I don't understand. I don't understand what it's like to have my life flipped upside down because of someone else's selfishness. I don't understand what it's like to be thrown away like garbage by my own family. I guess she forgot that I was the one who had to pack a bag and walk out of that house at 18 with nowhere to go. That I was the one who had to scrape my life back together, while Jess got to stay in her cozy little world, free of consequences. I didn't respond, so she tried again. This time, she called. I let it ring. Then she left a voicemail. I debated just deleting it, but curiosity got the best of me. I hit play. You are being so childish about this. I nearly dropped my phone. Childish? Oh, this was gonna be good. She kept going. I cannot believe you would hold on to a grudge for this long. You're ruining your stepsister's life over something that happened when you were kids. She's a mother now. She has responsibilities. Do you even care about what you've done? I almost laughed. Jess had a kid? Well, that was new information, but also not my problem. She had responsibilities? Great. Maybe she should have thought about that before running her mouth online and getting sued. The voicemail ended with my mother practically hissing, "You're so selfish. No wonder nobody wanted you." And that right there, that's the part that hit me. Not because it was true, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I had always known. She never wanted me, and she never would. The final goodbye, I don't know what my mother was expecting. Some big emotional response? Some guilt trip that would make me change my mind and come running back? Nah. Instead, I blocked her number. Then I went and lived my life. Jess and her husband are still struggling. From what little I've heard, losing the restaurant contract wasn't just a small setback. It sent a ripple effect through their business. Turns out, when one major client drops you, other businesses start wondering if they should do the same. I don't know how bad it got, And honestly, I don't care. I don't check up on them. I don't ask mutual friends about them. I don't waste energy wondering if they ever figured things out. They don't exist to me anymore. The best revenge, you know what the best part of all this is? I didn't have to do anything. Jess, she destroyed her own life. She made the choice to screw me over when we were teenagers. She made the choice to frame me, to bully me, to make sure I had nothing. And now, she's facing the consequences of her own actions. I didn't take revenge. I just moved on. And moving on, that's the best revenge there is. A new beginning. As for me, I'm happy. I have a fiancé who loves me, a career I actually enjoy, and friends who would never throw me away the way my own family did. I'm planning my wedding, picking out dresses, arguing with Jeff over whether or not we should have a live band or a DJ. He wants a DJ. I want a band. Jury's still out. Life is good. And my past? It's just that, the past. So, to Jess, to my mother, to the life I left behind, I have nothing left to say except good riddance.